Welcome to the DVI Suite Configuring Customer-facing Checklist webinar. Effectively just going to going into looking into the values of configuring all those different customizations in our checklist, why we should do them, and where you can do them. First and foremost, introduce myself. My name is Tommy. I'm a specialist in implementation and training here at RL Writer. And in today's agenda, we're just going to go through and see what we're actually going to be covering. So we're going to be covering the elements of the checklist. Again, this is the customer-facing checklist that we text and email to our customers. We're going to go ahead and show you where you can configure those options, where to configure them, and a big part of it that's not in there is why we should configure it and the kind of value you can get back from it. We're going to do a little review, and then of course, probably about half the time is going to be spent with you guys, hopefully, and going back and forth with any questions that you guys have for us, and then we'll close out with that. So our focus will be on the main customer-facing display. We're going to show you here in a second that this is the view the customers will get when they are sent the checklist via text or email. You can also view it with the customer in front on their computer display in front of you. But let's go ahead and look at the first element that we want to look at here. So here we want to look at the checklist that we have on the right-hand side. This is an example of one that I've already completed out for you guys. We're actually going to break down how we made things look the way they were on this specific checklist in a moment. But we do want to highlight that first green section we see here, entitled there is the repair order details. This is where the shop info, branding, repair order details, and team member profiles will be displayed. Of course, these can add personality and display the team that worked on the vehicle, as well as be professional and very presentable for your customer. We're just going to go ahead and introduce these elements. And again, like we mentioned, we're going to dive a little deeper in a second into each one. But the next one we want to look at will be the filter options at the top there in orange. So we're going to go ahead. This tool is a dynamic tool and will actually filter your checklist results and display only the conditions selected. These allow for easy to focus on either highlight opportunities or concerns or simply view the inspection as a whole. I always like to look at it as two different examples. Maybe you have a customer who comes in, and let's think of Andy. Of course, he's a service writer helping them out here. Andy sees the customer and they really just have an old vehicle. They want to just keep going. They don't want to put a lot of money into it. So up on the filter options, we can actually focus just on the issues marked in red, where these are going to be the only ones that highlight, and we'll show you how that dynamic worker display works in a second. Or maybe they're going on a road trip and they want to see all of them there. So of course you're going to select all of them and they'll actually only display, again, the results you want on the checklist. The different colors, just going to quickly go through them here. Red means urgent, yellow means warning, green means okay, and black means other. And then the last checklist component we're going to be looking at here will be the checklist element will actually be the checklist components themselves. This consists of all the items, warnings, and media and groupings of the checklist as well. Make it far easier for the customer to interpret the results, having all the items grouped, again, urgent issues highlighted, and this can help you prioritize important issues with the customers or simply bring new opportunities to the business here. But it's effectively the checklists themselves. And when we talk about those different items, I'm just going to highlight some of those. Some of them are pretty obvious, but the items themselves are just the checklist items, what we are checking. And in this example, we have lights, battery, air filter, cabin air filter, all examples of items that we're going through. The groupings that we talked about, groupings is the actual section that they're placed under. For example, outside and under hood are the two groupings we see here. And those are just aesthetic groupings we have for when it's printed out for the customer. It's not going to be the order that the technician completes it under, but it's just, again, the groupings that we want to make it more simple for the customer to understand. Media we talked about as well. There is an option for every single item to have photos. I noticed that's one of the image questions already. We're going to get to that. And comments for every image, but we can also even make those required. And that goes with the last section, which actually drives a lot of the aesthetics, and that's going to be the condition itself. So for every item, there's a condition, whether it's okay, and again, those conditions are highlighted by the colors at top. Either a urgent warning or caution may require attention, and you can customize what those are. Or of course, the standard other, not inspected, or needs attention immediately, highlighted in red. So that can actually change the aesthetics and can even drive some of the rules for requiring images and other things that we're going to take a look at in a second. Next, we're actually going to go ahead and configure all of those different options. We're going to show you where to do so. Dive into where these can be changed and how they can help you serve your customers, and ultimately, again, hopefully add some value with that too. And we should be looking at my just logged in DVI command screen there. We're under the smart status screen where I'm first logged into. And the first thing I'm going to actually show you is we're actually going to deviate for a second. I'm actually going to show you the printable, concise version of the checklist. So there is a slightly different variant here. So we're going to look for that same ticket we were looking at in our checklist example, which was Mrs. A. Smith. We're going to go on their repair order. We're going to click into their checklist, and we're going to see that exact same items that we saw on the checklist we were just viewing. And the example that I want to show you is that print option there, which does give us a slightly different version of that checklist. It saves you a bit of ink, a little bit more printer friendly, but effectively is the exact same contents, exact same media profile, just no filter options on this one. Again, that's just the printer friendly variant. And if there is something on that maybe the service writer doesn't want to display or wants to change before making it presentable to the customer, they can of course edit that checklist just here on the DVI command screen before the next step, which is super, super important because they don't get these checklists automatically, is you want to highlight that we do need to either send the email or send the text so they can view it on their devices as well. So again, that's how we bring it to our customer. And for the most part through DVI, we're going to be texting these over to the customer, and it's going to be shown with the link so they can use all the tools available. And if we want to get the same view they had, the one that we were looking at just recently, just now, we're going to select the last button here, the display checklist option. That's going to bring us to our full version of our checklist, the same version that the customer will get when they complete or when they receive their checklist as well. And we're once again just going to look down at those same three variants that we're looking at. We're going to look at the repair order details. Again, that includes the image are all taken, and all the details taken for this are actually all taken when creating the ticket on the actual tablet or on RO Writer. The team member profiles are displayed for the technician and the service writer currently assigned to this RO. So that's Andy there and Bart that you can see displayed there. These will personalize the checklist and feature the branding of the store as well as the customer's vehicle image, which of course is always appreciated when the service or whatever product feels especially tailored to the customer. And they also have the reference and contact details for their convenience. So that's these reference and contact details up here. These are actually clickable links for them to use when being from their PC or phone or mobile device. These can click on it, it'll open either the phone app or the email app for them there. A little bit of convenience. We're also showing off the smiling faces of our employees along with their bio, which we talked about already with the profiles here, which also helps provide a personal touch from our team so you can see who worked on the vehicle. They can be used to highlight the professionalism and experience of your team. For example, there you have Andy and all of his accolades, as well as they can show off a little personality and make light of it. We have Bart there, for an example, who likes to be tipped in donuts. Either way, however you want to present it to your customer, a great little way to have fun, but then still be giving them all the information they need. These can be adjusted in configuration, of course, both for the service writer and the technician for their profiles respectively. And these profiles can even be turned off from appearing on the checklist. Maybe there's security concerns or someone who's not comfortable, or whether you just haven't gotten around to getting those images for those technicians and service writers yet. So let's just navigate quickly and we can show you where those options lie in the DVI command suite. Back on the DVI command, we're just going to navigate on the top right here to configuration. And the first section is we're going to go ahead and alter those profiles themselves, and that's going to be technician information and service writer information. Click on one here for an example. We see both Andy and Bart. We can click on, for example, Andy's profile here. And we do want to change one or the other, either the image or the profile, one at a time. You'll see that the save options are for either or. So if you're going to be choosing an image, make sure you select an image first, and then simply hit save image. And then if you want to go back in and change the profile, do that separately by going in, adjusting and hitting the separate button for the information on the bio. And again, that's going to be mirrored exactly for the service writer profiles as well. So feel free to adjust those as well. And then the last section I'm going to show you is if you wanted to omit those completely from your checklists, that's going to reside here in the checklist option, specifically under options. There, The last two options there are to toggle off the remittance of the images, so you can choose to remove those. And something that's super important and we'll probably be hearing in every webinar you have from us is on every page you're at, if you are going to be making changes, we always want to remind you to save. So once that's done, you hit cancel and that'll adjust those options there. So you can include the details that can be adjusted, the repair order details, as well as your team profiles that show up there. Now we want to jump back over to our checklist because then we want to move over to our next option. And this time we actually get to see it do things. We're going to be going ahead and looking at our filter options. And again, these allow you to filter results based on whether the conditions were chosen. And again, one quick reminder, urgent for red, warning for yellow, green for okay, and black for other. These are great, once again, for focusing on urgent matters we need to prioritize with your customer. You can also use this as a good tool for highlighting concerns, and all while making it super easy to understand, hopefully, for the customer. And again, we're going to go back to Andy's example of him helping out a customer who only really wants to focus on the must-dos, an older car, just wants to keep it running. So let's filter just for defects. So you can see here, we can dynamically go ahead and remove all the results that are relevant to us at this time. And that way you can just focus on the things that he has to do. Or perhaps you have that other option where Andy is helping someone who's about to go on a road trip. And these aren't just in the way, rather these provide peace of mind to know that all of these different elements or parts or items through your checklist were actually checked. Better if you have images and all that stuff, you can go ahead and provide the peace of mind that way, as well as comments to give more concise details back for better feedback. So it depends on what the customer wants in that situation. You as a service writer can kind of hopefully customize that view for them, and them as customers can of course filter that on their own as well to see what they're most interested in. Now the default showing of what it appears at when they first click on it, because a lot of people forget this tool is here, and you might want to highlight something for them automatically. In that case, you can actually go back to that same option screen we were just at. So I'm going to click back to our DVI command screen here, under configuration, and under the checklist options where we can omit or include the technician profiles and service writer profiles, you also have the ability of setting which one of these will show up by default. And of course, like in my case, all of them are showing up by default, but you can have it so that maybe you're just focusing on getting the ones that can drive some revenue and you want to highlight on the urgent requirements, or you're doing more of a general inspection and the inspection itself is a product you want to move forward. Both options are there. But either way, just another example that, again, the checklist options are very important. And all these, you want to make sure won't be available unless you have version 2 selected, which should be done by default already. But just in case you're missing those options and you have one selected there, go ahead and swap it and they'll appear for you. And again, if you made any changes, save, save, save. That's going to be something we're going to be doing all the time. Jumping back once again to our actual checklist, because we want to look at our final element here. By no means is it an unimportant one. It's actually the meat and potatoes of what we want and the actual checklist components themselves. And that's going to be comprised of the items, groups, and conditions and everything that they kind of hold together. So to quickly break those down, again, the items, again, are simply what we're checking for. The groups are simply the aesthetic groupings that we're grouping them under, so it makes it easier to understand for the customer where that part is coming from and where it's being looked at. And then lastly, the conditions that specify the condition, of course, of that item, and will highlight and make it easier for the customer to view things that are important, or just to be able to see and make sure things are all checked correctly. Now, I did mention most of the aesthetics relate to the condition selected, or else it just looks like a list. You can even add an image to any item or even any comment as well, but it may be made required. You can actually put that as a rule for an item or any specific condition of that item as well. And we're going to take a look at how you can do that as well. These are great for being able to give the customers a visual view of the problem, which can really help the customer in making that decision to either move forward with something or not. So let's quickly move back over to our DVI command screen, because that's where everything is housed. And everything checklist related is going to be on the bottom half of these options here under configuration. If you are going to be in configuration, just a reminder, you will need admin privileges under DVI command. And we're just going to highlight down here under checklists. And we're going to view firstly just our list of checklists. And to view the items inside any one of our list of checklists, we can always simply click into that checklist. for example, this one here. And we may be able to add, move, or delete existing items from that checklist here as well. And if they aren't existing on our current list here, because we have a whole bunch already created that are either existing in other checklists or just simply in the background in case you need them. If they're not on our list, you will have to go ahead and create them under our separate items tab over here. So to quickly show you what that looks like, and you will notice that when you do have an item, there's a few things you have to set for it. So for this item here existing, it does belong to a specific group, which you will have to select when you first make it, as well as give it a list of conditions. Again, those are the conditions that denote a lot of the aesthetics, and there's a lot of rules that can go along with that. We are going to take a look at what that looks like in a second, but before we click out of here, I do want to highlight that the item itself has the ability to require an image. So you won't be able to actually complete that checklist. You'll be able to move on with it, but it won't show completed in green with an icon until that image is added as well. And the list of conditions will also show up here, and you can add conditions. And just like the items, if they're not existing on our list down here, you'll actually have to go to our separate conditions tab, which is where we want to go now, because this is where we get a lot of those options to be able to change those aesthetics. So again, the condition is just how bad, or effectively how bad an item can get. This can be cracked, damaged, anything, and you can then change the intensity, color, and whether it's a defect or not to determine whether it shows up on the red side or the green side, or any of those other options that we talked about. I also noted for this example condition here, maybe this item, whatever item it belongs to, doesn't require an image, but whenever this specific condition is selected, you can then specify that it will require an image, but only once this condition is selected. That is one of the other options. We can also change whether it's a defect or not, and that's going to whether it shows up as a red icon on the checklist or not. And we can move forward from there on those options. If you are using the marketing module, you can also post a follow-up based on the condition as well. And there are also some rules that conditions kind of go along with. And for that reason, I really would recommend finding our other resources that we have on configuring and managing checklists. There's actually one called Managing and Configuring Checklists, which goes through the items, conditions, and groups in a very visually appealing way, and it really focuses on that quite a bit. But some other rules that we can look at here, I did mention that they can also add labor as well as some other options as well there. But I really just wanted to highlight where a lot of those aesthetics came from our checklist in this case. Again, this is the customer-facing checklist, the checklist that the customer will receive when it's texted to them on their phone, and they'll simply be going to a link that'll give them this exact view where those filters work. Those links can be clicked on, and all these items are direct and fresh right from your DVI command window. And these pictures, of course, could have been taken from the tablets or from the previous customer profiles they had before. And to break down those elements again and why you should change them, of course, we have the main branding profile in our marketing here with our writer details. That'll have your shop's logo, it'll have your customer's image, as well as all their details and all the links that they'll need to contact you quickly. It'll also show off their team that's working on it. And then to be able to view it the way they want to view it, you have the orange section there with the filter. That does exactly that, just lets you filter your results. And then the actual results, potatoes and meat of our checklist, all the components are in red there. And we can see how we can go through and change all those. And we'll take a look at some of your questions as well. So how do you put photos in is the main question we have here. And the way we put photos in will actually be on the tablet itself. So open up our checklist here. When you're actually completing the checklist, you'll actually be given an option to either check it or hit the X. And at any point, you can always hit the camera icon, which will allow you to add images. So it'll actually be done on the tablet. And when you're completing it, you can simply add images there. The profile image will actually be saved for the repair order itself. And all these images can be found in the DVI command. Hey, Smith, click over here. And we can see all the images that were added either for the repair order or the vehicle during the checklist itself. So it is an option. It does save everything that was done through there, and that way you can text it to the customer that way. Where do you place the info and photos? Again, that's going to be part of the checklist themselves when you're completing it. But when you're doing the tablet, if you have it in front of you and you're completing any one of those, again, it'll be actually within the item itself. Yeah, so when the tech is completing the checklist themselves, they'll be completing the checklist on the actual tablet, and that'll allow them to take the photos. And as I mentioned before, you can actually view not only the results, but even the links right here in the checklist icon. We're going to go to edit checklist, and we can actually see what the tech or server, whoever completed the checklist has placed in there. So you can actually go in, adjust the comments, change those, and you can also view the display of the images through the display checklist or through our preview section here, and you can even click to enlarge. So the logo image is actually going to be part of your standard branding within RO Writer. Within DVI Command, under configuration and email settings, there's also the ability for you to add your header logo and details there for your emails as well. Now the info on the actual image that shows up here, that's the car profile, and that belongs to the repair order itself, whereas these images belong to every individual item. So this is added when the ticket is created, and these are added when the items are being selected. How to put the images of the techs and the service writers? Yeah, absolutely. So on our DVI command screen over here, if we wanted to change the images that are involved for the text there, so the text that show up will simply be the text that are assigned on the repair order or the service writer, but the images and the bios for them can be changed right here. So for the technician, that's going to be a list of all your technicians, and you can add or reduce their profiles there. And then similar for the service writers, we have that option here. So if you wanted to change Andy's picture, we can click on Andy, we can choose a file, we can choose a new photo for Andy, and then we're going to save that image. So that changes the image, but if we also wanted to change the bio, we have to do this in 2 steps. You don't want to do it in 1 step. Clicking back into it, you can add additional details there, like his preference being the jelly-filled type. And again, you want to make sure you select the right save button there, because hitting that one will actually just get rid of the image for you and won't save your information. So you want to hit the information one. That way you get the details that you want and you can move forward. Anyways, thanks guys. I hope you've kind of seen the value and why you should change these. I mean, I think from the difference between a really empty one to a really pretty view of the checklist really helps, especially with the customization for the customer. I remember the first time I received one of these, I was actually pretty astounded. And I took these, and instead of having to go underneath my car and kept looking at to see the hole in my muffler, I was able to look at this over and over again, and it really, I was like, man, that thing is huge. I really got to replace that thing, and it really emphasizes that for you as well. So thanks guys for those who have stuck around and have listened to me here talk about our checklist feature. Hopefully this is going to help you guys out a little bit, or at least grow your curiosity in some of the things it can do for you. Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, really great teaching you guys. Thank you. I really appreciate the engagement. I really hope this has been helpful as well.